So today I broke a watermelon with my legs. All right. Welcome one, welcome all. Today's video topic is going to be about Basil Hawkins and what he said in one of the earlier chapters of Wano of him being able to give somebody a plus ultra ability power up. Kind of an ass pull, kind of not of an ass pull. So, let's begin. So to start off, and basically what we're doing with today's video is we're talking about Hawkins' dialogue in Chapter 913, Subaru Pays the Favor, where he has a quick skirmish with Zoro and Luffy at the beginning of the Wano arc. What's really been intriguing me, and the two thought processes that I have, are based off this dialogue. Sorry, I'll draw a good card next time. These cards can be a little risky, but I have some that give an individual the ability to surpass their limits. Yami Sekihiro, surpass your limits. Kind of an ass pull. It's like a way for protagonists to power up, right? So I ran a poll on Twitter a couple of days ago. Sorry, I'm going to fix myself real quick. I ran a poll on Twitter a couple of days ago, and I asked the question, does Hawkins' ability to make others surpass their limits only go for physical attributes such as strength, endurance, stamina, what else is there? Defense, all that kind of stuff, like physical attributes that make like surpass your limits in the sense of like Black Clover, where Austin is surpassing his limits all the time because he's getting stronger physically because he has no magic? Or does it also concede the idea that Hawkins' ability can actually help surpass the limits of one's devil fruit or one's actual kind of like hockey willpower in the sense of conquerors, right? So if I remember correctly, the Twitter poll was like 50-50 with 30 responses, whatever, right? Or super close. It was like 55-45, something along the lines of that, right? And in my mind, I don't see why Hawkins's power can't affect devil fruits in some certain way, right? Because if you just have somebody who is pure physicality, right? Like no hockey in the world, no devil fruit, right? It makes sense for the continuum that they would only be boosted in that physical attribute section because that's all they have, right? But with the expansive mind of Oda and everything that he's written so far, why couldn't Hawkins also expand the ability of somebody with a devil fruit or somebody with hockey alone? So like, let's say you're pretty good at armament hockey and you're like kind of shit at observation hockey. With the ability that Hawkins possesses to surpass your limits, you might be able to break that barrier and get a glimpse of having a better understanding of observation hockey that helps you down the line, right? Same in case goes for devil fruit. I'm going to put a subclause here, right? So I don't want Luffy to be the benefactor of Hawkins, I cannot say his name plurally in conjunction with what it is. Hawkins is power to surpass his limits. I don't want it to be used on Luffy for a couple of reasons, which I'll delve into later. But for Luffy to gain Awakening off of this power-up that Hawkins could give him, it takes away everything that Luffy's had for 10 years with the Gomu Gomu no Mi, right? We're getting that out of the way. We're not using that on Luffy to get Awakening. Scratch that out of your minds, right? But what I can see is Hawkins using this ability, which I perceive to actually influence devil fruit abilities as well, not necessarily to the extent of Awakening for forever, but the extent of understanding what an awakening is within a devil fruit, or actually changing the attributes of a devil fruit itself when it comes to abilities. So this is where it's going to get a little tricky and it's going to get a little confusing, because what I wanted to say, or what I'm going to say, is that if we have a point in case of Hawkins using this ability to surpass somebody's limits for the final fight with Kaido, the first person that I thought of was Law, and Law with the Opi Opi no Mi. So if we go all the way back to Dressrosa, right, where there's the fight with Doflamingo, Doflamingo states that he wanted the Opi Opi no Mi to make himself immortal because that's one of the abilities of the fruit. And with the immortality and what Dofi knows, he could have taken over the world, right? But the clause and the catch of performing the immortality surgery when you have the Opi Opi no Mi is in exchange you give your life, right? And so I don't see Law giving up his life just to defeat Kaido. I don't see it, right? So there has to be some subclause or subplot to get around this. And so with this subplot and this subclause to get around this comes in Hawkins and his ability to surpass somebody's limits using one of his own abilities. Now, I asked a couple of questions to a couple of bigger YouTubers, and I appreciate you guys for reaching out to me and replying, those two being Brago and Dritz. And both brought up some pretty good ideas and some pretty good counter arguments for me. And Dritz's was immortality and indestructible are two different things, right? And I was like, okay, I figured this, or I didn't figure this out. I thought of this on my own, right? And then he pointed it out to me again, which made me like resurface the idea that there is a difference between immortality and indestructibility, and I completely agree with him. But in my headcanon is where we get in the theory zone, right? If Hawkins can let somebody surpass their abilities, in my head, surpassing your abilities could also mean tweaking your abilities, right, to perform a specific task for the time being, right? So now we're going to cut back to the immortality surgery. Now, in regards to the immortality surgery, it was basically brought in as a plot point for Law to choose when and where he dies, how he dies, and why he dies, right? Because we don't necessarily think, or I don't necessarily think, that Law is going to really use the immortality surgery on Luffy. That takes away from Chopper's medical feat of curing Luffy from some incurable disease he gets once he's close to the end of his journey. Another video. It takes away from that, and Luffy doesn't want to be immortal, right? He wants to enjoy the journey. He wants to go there. However, I could see Law using a subvariant version of the immortality surgery on Kaido during the final battle to somehow weaken him, right? You guys might ask, how are you going to use the immortality surgery on someone who's indestructible? I mean, he's mortal. He, for all hell purposes, right? He can jump off of a sky island and land in the ocean and sink to the bottom and die because he's a devil fruit user. He could, right? But Kaido wants to go out in this grandiose way in a big final, right? His skin can't be pierced, his nose can't bleed, his horns are made out of titanium, vibranium, whatever. Like, he's just indestructible, right? And how do you put the two together when they're two non-comparable things? To the extent of my brain and my headcanon during this theory, when I said earlier that Hawkins' ability to change someone to surpass their limits, if they are a devil fruit user, could in fact mean that they can actually use a variant of the forms of what they're using, right? So I'm going to take Awakening for an example. All right, so you have like your base form, then you have your Awakening when it comes to your devil fruit. Let's look at Dofi. String no Mi. Awakening turns the environment into strings, right? So that's like a subvariant of some technique that he has that changes the environment around him, but it's still a part of his repertoire of fighting and his actual devil fruit ability. So now let's take into consideration what Law's Opi Opi no Mi does. Doctor, just a big doctor room. He can do whatever he wants, and he's a skilled medical doctor, actually. So he has the creative non-limitations of what it means to be a doctor, right? And do all these kinds of things. So in a sense, I could see how Law can think of a way to change the properties of the ability of the immortality surgery, to change it into something more along the lines of the, I'm going to decompose the cells of your body to make them physically weaker so you are actually weaker yourself type of surgery, right? That's the shittiest name I can come up for it, but that is something that I can see my mind Law doing because he's a doctor and he has such vast knowledge, right, of like the human body. And at some point there has to be a conjunction of what Kaido's actual body is. If he's human and only a dragon, he ate this or that or the other, right? There has to be a way, or at least I think, or there could be a way, is better stated, that Law is able to use the Immortality Surgery in a different subvariant way to where he can weaken Kaido. Now, some of you are going to go, and this was also brought up to me, that takes away from Luffy's training in Udon. That takes away from his Haki mastering. This takes away from his learning of Ryo, right? And I agree with you to some extent, but my counter argument is a lot of people in the community, and I love the community, don't get me wrong, are going to be pissed if they see Luffy 1v1 Kaido and he masters Ryo and he masters armament and he masters future sight and he masters this, that, and the other thing, and then he gets gear 5th and then he gets an awakening, right? I don't think the last two are actually going to happen in Wano. But so many people take away from the fact that Luffy has been training, right, in Udon for the last several days. He had a fight with Katakuri, which was 12 hours after a fight with Cracker, right, which was probably after a week of rest at Zou, which is probably a week after the Doflamingo fight, right? So if we go back to what really says in Haki blooms in intense situations or in life-threatening situations, right, almost the same property can be applied to Devil Fruit. And so me personally, I enjoy Luffy's growth, right? I love the way that he's becoming more buff. He's thinking smarter. He's using his abilities more. Like, he's mastering all this Haki. I also agree that it's not enough time for him to 1v1 Kaido. So if you say that if Luffy 1v1s Kaido, it's too quick, it's too fast, it shouldn't happen like this, right? I agree with you. I don't disagree with you. On the other hand of the community, if Luffy doesn't get the power-ups from Hawkins, and then let's just say my theory comes through, right? And Hawkins uses his plus ultra ability on Law, people are also going to be pissed at that because they're saying Luffy is supposed to be a Yonko by now, right? Like, he's supposed to be strong enough. He's supposed to be able to 1v1 these Yonkos, and we all know that he's not there yet. So they're going to say, oh, it's just the power of friendship. It's the power of this. It's the power of that. Like, Luffy still needs help when it comes to these massive fights. And I do think that Luffy does need a little bit of help, a little bit more than a little bit of help when it comes to Kaido, because Kaido is such a force. He's such a calamity, such a Kaido, right? I would much rather see this ability that Hawkins possesses, the plus ultra ability, on someone as a support character rather than Luffy, because I think you can have both of these things without taking away from Luffy's development and actually adding to Hawkins' character. Because additionally, he says at the beginning of the arc, you guys have a 19% chance of living by the end of this, right? And it's like super ominous, and we're like, ooh, 19%? That's like so low, but that's like 119% for Luffy. He's going to survive no matter what. I just think that this adds more character well-roundedly to the whole entire cast of Wano. I mean, the people who are going to be a part of the final fight versus Kaido, not just the whole entire final fight, right? So that includes Luffy, Law, Kid, Hawkins, Killer, Zoro. I mean, Sanji, they're fighting King and Queen with whoever, right? But I just think that this is such a better way of Oda getting around kind of like this hold that he built, because Kaido, like I said earlier, is such an indestructible force and Luffy isn't strong enough, right? So you do have to have some power up at some point without it being Gear 5th or it actually being Awakening, because those are such a long process for somebody to learn in the One Piece world. So those are my thoughts on the Hawkins part when he is using his ability and if he uses it on Law. Let me know what you guys think of that. And then I have one more part to this video. I can't find the video, or I can't download the video of me squeezing a watermelon between my thighs from my phone and my computer. It's being fucking weird. But the second thing that I wanted to get to in this video, right, was nothing really else. So let me know what you guys think about Hawkins using his plus ultra ability, if he's going to use it on Law, if he's going to use it on Luffy. Who do you think he's going to use it on if it's not any of those two? Is he even going to use it? Are they going to need it for Kaido? Let me know what you think it takes away and doesn't take away, or it adds to Luffy's fight versus Kaido, whether that be the training in Udon, Hawkins' ability, the amount of people who are actually helping him during the final fight. So, like I said, like, comment, subscribe. I appreciate you guys. I keep getting like 1 subscriber a day. We're so close to 50. At the beginning of the year, I said 50. And if I hit that 50, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to do something. And then after that, we're going to shoot for 100. So I really appreciate you guys. I do. Thank you for watching the video. Until next time.